Holger Rune never intended for the secret to slip, but once the confession escaped his lips, there was no hitting rewind. It was just a breezy Q&A, a throwaway query about his peers, and suddenly he dropped her name, Alex Eala. The hesitation, the averted gaze, the whole circuit clocked it immediately. That split-second blunder would transform a quiet crush into the headline of the season. On the Pro Tour, athletes lug around baggage significantly heavier than their gear bags. They shoulder the desperate aspirations of entire homelands. Holger Rune, that Danish dynamo with the explosive temper and lethal strokes, had evolved into that very beacon for his people. Barely 21, he had already cracked the top 10 elite, toppled Grand Slam titans, and cemented his status as the ATP's most electrifying prodigy. His ascent wasn't just fast, it was desperate. The Danes hadn't cheered for a racket wielder of his caliber in ages, and Rune wore that heavy crown as if it were battle gear. Meanwhile, across the fence in the women's locker room, another rising star was navigating her own pressure cooker. Alex Eala, the Filipino pioneer, had transcended the sport back home to become a veritable icon. She etched her name in history as the first from the Philippines to snag a major junior trophy, conquering the U.S. Open girls singles. First, she smashed the top 200 barrier, then 150. But every serve meant more than just ranking points or a paycheck. It was a crusade to show that a nation of over 110 million souls deserved a seat at the high table of tennis. Their orbits intersected now and then at the mixed tournaments. The pro circuit is a tighter village than fans realize. Shared lobbies, communal gyms, the same lounges where legends sip coffee beside nervous rookies. Rune and Eala moved in similar currents but never really washed up on the same shore. He was the moody virtuoso battling for Masters 1000 glory. She was the gritty trailblazer, grinding through the 125s, clawing her way up the ladder. Yet, the parallel was striking. They were mirror images in separate frames, both dragging the weight of national pride that would suffocate normal folks. Both tasted victory way too early and were now trying to swim through the treacherous riptide of high expectations. They shared that golden mix of raw mechanical skill and the iron will that divides the good from the legends. And both of them, whether they'd ever confess it to a microphone, knew the bitter isolation of standing alone for your flag in a ruthless solo sport. The tour family is intimate, spanning the globe but keeping no secrets. Players see everything. They stream each other's games while cooling down. They swap trainers and practice partners. They grasp in a way no fan ever could the exact hell the person across the net is surviving. So, when a rookie pulls off a miracle, the locker room buzzes. Whenever Alex Eala clawed out a tough win or shattered a ceiling for Filipino sport, the other kids on tour were watching. And Holger, despite the different schedule, despite the oceans and brackets separating them, was keeping score. No one guessed the depth of his interest, until that fateful Q&A, until the moment his polished media mask slipped just enough to expose a beating heart. Because in this game, like in romance, the unscripted bloopers reveal the raw truth. What happens when you can't bottle up the admiration anymore? It began as a mundane presser, the sort Rune could do in his sleep. Just a post-training media huddle at a Masters 1000 showdown. The usual drill. Reporters lobbing softballs, athletes swinging back with rehearsed platitudes. The vibe was loose, tucked away in the shade near the practice courts, the rhythmic thwack of fuzzy yellow balls providing the soundtrack. Rune lounged in his sweaty kit, chill, prepared to kill 15 minutes with generic sports chatter. The reporter opened with the basics. How's the form? What about the draw? How's the rehab from that little knock that sidelined him last week? Rune fielded them with the autopilot slickness of a veteran media darling. Yeah, feeling great. Knees solid. Can't wait to get out there. Blah, blah, blah. Standard, corporate, boring. Then the interviewer tossed the grenade that blew up the script. Holger, you've mentioned tracking your peers before. Since the women are competing here too, is there any rising star on that side whose style catches your eye? It was supposed to be filler, a bridge to kill airtime and maybe snag a soundbite about the future of tennis. The writer likely expected a safe name drop like Coco Gauff or perhaps Mira Andreeva. The usual suspects, the safe bets, the heavy hitters everyone expected him to list. But Rune went off script. He hesitated, and we aren't talking about that calculated stall athletes use to cook up a media-friendly soundbite. This silence was heavy, prolonged. His gaze drifted left, the telltale sign of someone digging into genuine memory rather than reading off a mental teleprompter. Then, a smile broke through. Not the polished, media-trained grin he wears for sponsors. This was raw, involuntary, maybe even a little shy. "Alex Eala," he murmured. his voice dropping an octave softer than before. Honestly, what she is achieving for Filipino tennis is just unreal. The grit she brings to every single point, grinding through qualifiers and the lower circuits just to earn a shot at the big leagues, it commands respect. The reporter caught the scent immediately. You could hear the gears turning in the follow-up, a sharp edge of intrigue cutting through the air. So, you are keeping tabs on her matches? Silence again. Rune shifted his weight, and for a heartbeat, the confident top 10 titan vanished, replaced by a 21-year-old guy blushing over a crush. I mean, yeah, I guess a lot of us are. Her game is just so whole. She moves like a dream, and her head game, especially when the heat is on, you can't teach that kind of steel. It is innate. You are born with it, and she has got it. Now, here is the kicker, the detail. Holger wasn't just spewing platitudes. He wasn't falling back on she is talented or hard worker, those hollow fillers pros use when they have no clue who they are talking about. He was pinpointing mechanics, her footwork, her psychological armor in the clutch moments. These were not hot takes from scrolling past a viral reel on Instagram. This was a scout's report, a breakdown from someone who had studied her tapes, sat through full sets, and formed a legitimate technical respect. The interviewer pushed forward, realizing they had struck gold. Ever hit the courts together? Or talked shop? Rune's face changed. He realized he had wandered off the beaten path and into dangerous territory. We have chatted a bit at events. Just standard player lounge banter, you know? But her dedication is serious. I really admire that. Then he dropped the bombshell that would fuel the tennis blogosphere for a week. She is someone who is going to shock a lot of people. She has the toolkit to crack the top 50. Easy. Maybe even higher. And when she gets there, everyone is going to see what I see. Asterisk. When asterisk, not times if asterisk. That absolute conviction. That intimate stake in another athlete's future. The Q&A dragged on, circling back to safe harbors like serve mechanics and match strategy. But the cat was out of the bag or the heart was on the sleeve, depending on how you view it. 60 minutes later, the clip was everywhere. 2 hours in, it was conquering tennis, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. By hour 3, Filipino superfans were churning out Holger respects Alex edits set to tear-jerking ballads. By hour 6, the gossip rags were plastering split screens of Rune and Alex, with captions dissecting every pixel for hidden meaning. Holger Rune had committed the cardinal sin of modern media training. He had been real. He showed something personal, a reverence that screamed more than just colleagues to anyone with eyes. The web was ready to implode. And this was just the opening salvo. If tennis stands have a superpower, it is digital forensics. The moment that interview hit the feed, the tennis community went full CSI mode. But they weren't hunting a killer. They were mapping the depths of Rune's fascination with Alex Eala. Ground zero was Twitter. A Filipino fan account dropped the video. Holger, talking about Alex with times that times smile. I see you, boy. The quote tweets flooded in like a tidal wave. That loaded hesitation before her name crossed his lips was deafening. He made it sound like destiny, not chance, and I am absolutely shrieking. High-level athletes never talk about colleagues with that specific tone unless there is a romantic undercurrent flowing beneath the surface. But the real detective work started when a user decided to audit Rune's digital footprint. That is when the plot thickened. Someone dug up a relic from 7 months back, a practice shot Alex had uploaded from a Spanish clay court. Buried 73 comments deep was a solitary flame emoji from Holger Rune's blue check account. Back then, it was invisible. Rune had 800,000 followers, Alex had maybe 200,000. A single emoji is easy to miss in the static, but today it looked like a smoking gun. Then came another breadcrumb. A story Alex posted 5 months ago, celebrating her maiden main draw win. She'd tagged the event and sponsors. Holger Rune had definitely seen it. While Instagram usually keeps story analytics under lock and key, a hawk-eyed fan managed to snag a screenshot from what looked like a leaked close friends circle. The image clearly displayed Rune's official handle sitting right there in the viewer list, and that was all the internet detectives needed. Scouring through a professional photographer's archives, they unearthed a hidden gem from Indian Wells, a candid shot from the practice courts. It captured Rune and Eala waiting for their turn, deep in conversation and sharing a laugh, a moment frozen from 4 months prior. At the time of posting, the photo had barely scraped together 40 likes. Suddenly, it was being reposted thousands of times, captioned with obsessive analyses of his gaze, while YouTube drama channels rushed to production. Holger Rune's secret crush screamed one thumbnail, while another asked, Why has Eala caught the eye of the ATP? The recommendation algorithms went into overdrive, serving this narrative to hundreds of thousands of casual fans who barely knew the player's stats. TikTok quickly mutated into its own wild ecosystem of theories and speculation. Fan editors began stitching together romantic montages, syncing Rune's best winners with Eala's highlights over trending love ballads. One deep dive video analyzed their playing styles, pointing out uncanny similarities in court positioning and suggesting they had been privately swapping tactics. That single clip racked up 2.3 million views, prompting the tennis subreddit to launch a massive megathread dubbed the Rune Eala situation. It was tagged the complete timeline of events. Obsessive users mapped out every interaction and cross-referenced tournament schedules to pinpoint exactly when they were in the same city. One sleuth realized they had both trained at the Moratoglu Academy, albeit missing each other by a few years. Another dug up an archival interview where Eala mentioned sparring with male pros, fueling rumors that Rune was her mystery partner. For the tennis community in the Philippines, this was uncharted territory. Eala had already put them on the map with her trophies. But this felt different. This was one of the ATP's brightest young stars, heaping praise on her with a warmth that felt undeniably personal. Sports talk panels across the Philippines spent hours debating the implications. It dominated morning radio in Manila, transcending simple sports coverage to become a national conversation. It was part celebrity gossip, part national pride, yet not everyone was cheering. Some of Eala's loyalists felt uneasy. She is a phenomenal athlete in her own right, argued one viral post. She does not need a man's validation to be worthy of the spotlight. That sentiment resonated, pulling in 15,000 likes almost instantly. It ignited a fierce debate about whether the fixation on Rune's comments was actually overshadowing Eala's hard-earned individual success. Danish fans were equally divided. Some found it charming that their intense star was showing a softer, more relatable side. Others saw it as a liability. Holger needs to focus on his forehand, not the WTA roster, grumbled one user on a Danish forum. His season has been inconsistent enough without this kind of tabloid circus. Even professional tennis journalists, the veterans who cover the Grand Slams, found themselves pausing at the nature of the story. Was it news? One respected reporter tweeted, "I have been on this tour for 20 years. Players respect each other, sure, but the specific way Rune spoke about Eala, the detail? The technical insight paired with that level of personal investment? I have honestly never heard a peer describe another player quite like that." The speculation hit fever pitch when news broke that both Rune and Eala were on the entry list for a combined event in 2 weeks. The realization set in. They would be at the same venue, breathing the same air. The potential for joint press conferences, courtside sightings, or a single shared photo sent the internet into a tailspin. It was poised to be the season's biggest subplot, but nobody predicted the sharp cultural backlash that was brewing. For every fan swooning over the potential romance, there was a critic viewing the power dynamic through a much sharper lens. As the narrative swallowed tennis social media, the dissenting voices grew louder, more articulate, and impossible to ignore. The shift began with a blistering thread from a prominent voice in the women's tennis community. "We need to talk about how toxic this Rune Eala discourse is. Suddenly, a top ATP player's interest is what makes her legitimate. She has been grinding and winning for years, but the mainstream only cares now that a man has noticed her." This exemplifies exactly what is broken in sports media coverage. The message struck a nerve. Within hours, it garnered thousands of retweets, with journalists and former pros weighing in to support the critique. The frustration wasn't aimed at Rune's admiration. Most agreed his words were likely sincere. The problem, they insisted, was that his casual praise generated more headlines than Eala's actual career ever had. A prominent courtside voice fired a salvo with an op-ed headlined, "Alex doesn't require a permission slip from the Danish star." The text chronicled her glittering resume, spotlighting the Junior Grand Slam trophy, her gritty ascent up the global ladder on a shoestring budget, and her status as the singular hope for a nation's sporting ambitions. The author insisted that these feats alone commanded front-page headlines. Yet, the spotlight only found her because a male competitor uttered her name, a flaw not in Holger's character, but in the machinery of sports media. The backlash soon targeted the nature of the gossip itself. Internet sleuths highlighted the cringe-inducing habit of fantasy pairing two athletes who have zero public history of romance. They are flesh-and-blood humans, not characters in a scripted soap opera. The obsession displayed by some fans crosses the line into genuinely creepy and intrusive territory. Even the Dane's loyalists wondered if the circus was damaging his game, following a rocky season marred by shaky form and flare-ups. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from his lethal forehand to his hypothetical heartstrings. His inner circle must be seething that this tabloid noise has hijacked the conversation. Audio shows spent hours dissecting the morality of the buzz, with one host even consulting a sports psychologist. When you reach the elite tier, you are drilled to be sterile and cautious with every syllable. Every phrase is placed under a microscope and autopsied. That he dropped his guard to speak so warmly about Alex implies he either forgot the rules or simply didn't give a damn. Regardless, the frenzy trapped both competitors in an awkward glare. However, for every detractor, a supporter emerged, defending his sentiments with equal fervor. A viral clip from a coach posed the question, "Since when is professional admiration a crime?" He praised her mechanics, her steel-trap mind, and her discipline-specific or technical accolades, not condescension. It was simply a case of real recognizing real. Our shock at genuine kindness reveals more about our cynicism than his intent. Fans from the Philippines added a fresh plot twist. "We have spent years screaming into the void, trying to get the world to watch Alex." A local writer noted, "We cheered every trophy in isolation, while the globe looked the other way." If a soundbite from a top star finally directs the cameras toward her, and the international fame she has earned, why should we be angry? A retired pro-turned-analyst offered her take on air. "I recall the grind of being a rookie, looking for a break. When a titan of the sport validates your skills publicly, it moves the needle. It builds your brand. It opens doors to elite practice sessions, media buzz, and even sponsorship deals." If his words boost her trajectory, we should take the win while still critiquing the broken system. The discourse exposed a fracture in how the community perceives these interactions. Was this about professional esteem or a crush? A sweet moment of solidarity, or proof of how we sideline female athletes? The forums turned into a digital war zone. One top-rated comment argued, "Everyone is over-analyzing this to death." Two kids burdened by national expectations saw each other's hustle. End of story. The rest is your imagination. The reply, just as popular, noted that the existence of this debate proves the bias. When was the last time a woman's compliment toward a man dominated the news cycle for a week? We undervalue the women's tour, and this hysteria is the smoking gun. Other pros started dropping subtle hints. A top 20 star posted, "Salute to the women grinding in the shadows, worthy of respect whether the cameras are on or not." The subtext was loud and clear, despite no names being dropped. A male player shared a court selfie captioned, "Respect to the hustle, regardless of gender. We see you." Vague, yet clearly aiming at the elephant in the room. The pressure peaked when a magazine demanded a, quote, "The official statement was a masterclass in PR safety." Holger holds deep respect for anyone who sacrifices for the sport. His mention of Alex was strictly about her talent and drive. He wishes her nothing but the best. It was stiff, sterilized, and corporate, utterly lacking the raw fire and charm that sent the first clip into the stratosphere. The web caught on instantly. One user sniped, "Handlers got to him." That is the legal team talking, not the player. "Zero soul in that statement," claimed another. The first video was pure heart. What is the truth? Yet, the biggest riddle hung unresolved. How did Alex truly feel about being at the center of this sudden storm? Ultimately, a slip-up on camera served as a wake-up call. These titans are flesh and blood, far more than just seeds in a bracket. They are kids growing up in a fishbowl, craving real intimacy while the whole planet dissects their every move. Holger's words regarding Alex peeled back the curtain, exposing a hidden layer of the professional circuit. The camaraderie, the silent nod of respect, and the shared burden of a life that few others can comprehend. Was it love, friendship, or game-recognizing game? The label did not matter as much as the reality. Both stars walked through the fire of public speculation with absolute class. They taught the gallery that the best drama is not always a feud. Sometimes, it is the quiet power of mutual appreciation. Where the road leads for their careers and what becomes of their bond remains a mystery for the future. But history will mark this as the moment a raw truth cut through the noise, proving that beneath the sweat and titles, players are just souls watching out for one another. So, what is your verdict on the Holger and Alex saga? Just colleagues, or is Cupid involved? Let us know your theories down below. We are eager to hear your analysis on this captivating courtside mystery. Craving more inside scoops on the tears and triumphs of the tour? Crush that subscribe button and toggle on alerts. We bring you the headlines that burn, the debates that rage, and the humanity that makes tennis an obsession. Catch you in the next one.